Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris back again. It is time for our annual ProgPower recap. Nothing short of a fantastic week in Atlanta, Georgia. But before we talk all things ProgPower, other than busy, how are you, my friend?
That's it. You hit the nail on the head. In case you can't tell, for those watching the video version of this podcast, I am getting ready to move. So next episode should have new environs, and there won't be a bed in the background, as somebody on YouTube so aptly pointed out. So we appreciate you, YouTube commenters. Yes, that is
Taking
a bed.
Notice.
I am in a bedroom. So you only have so much room in an apartment. So,
but I believe he also said that he liked your comforter. So I guess there's good and all, right?
Yeah, well, $35 on Amazon, you can't go wrong.
I'm so happy to connect with you on the heels of ProgPower, and I say that because it's almost like we made a concerted effort not to talk about anything related to it, other than when we were there and having a good time. But I say that because I thought that it would be interesting just to kind of hear your take live and in real time about your thoughts, what you liked, what maybe you would have preferred something different or whatnot. And as we talked about, in some of our Patreon episodes and even really on the main feed, I think that going into the lineup, there was a lot of trepidation just because of the fact that we didn't really know who was going to show up and all that stuff. And it was a little bit of a concern going into it. There had already been, I think, over 5 or 6 cancellations going into the fest. And so I'm happy to just kind of say at the outset, the lineup that was ultimately promised was ultimately delivered and everyone did show up. So that was a good thing, but certainly not the lineup that we thought it was going to be a year ago.
That is correct. There were a number of changes. I think Vandenplas was the last domino to fall, and then everything up to that point or after that point stayed copacetic. So yeah, but you just never know. I mean, we've seen it happen before where like half the band doesn't come, and there was actually one misfortune that we'll get to, which was a real bummer. And that was not visa related, but health related. But we'll get to that. But going into the the original lineup, even as it was originally constructed, I wasn't that excited about it overall compared to some of the more recent lineups. Though the band I was most excited for this year I was probably more excited about that than anything I've probably seen since Power Quest played at ProgPower. So it was like very top heavy for me this year, and I didn't honestly catch too many of the bands that ended up being replacements for one reason or another. But everybody that I talked to that did see all the replacement bands had nothing but good things to say. So for that, that's really great. I saw a lot of compliments. I think pretty much for every single band that was not an original, original member of the lineup. So it just speaks to the promoter's ability to find pieces to fit in a puzzle when pieces get lost, as puzzle pieces tend to. And though it wasn't a like lateral genre to genre movement every time, it sounds like it really hit the right notes with a lot of people. So I think that all in all, we could say that the festival this year, despite everything that went wrong, was a success.
I would agree with that. I did not catch every minute of every band, but I caught most minutes of most bands. And obviously I saw a lot of full sets as well. So I think what we probably should do is just kind of recap the trip in general. And obviously there'll be a focus on the 4 days of music. And given the lineup, I actually decided to switch it up the hotels this year. I thought there was going to be a lot more downtime than there actually wound up being, but I picked a hotel that was a lot closer to the venue so that I could go back and forth and that sort of a thing. And I guess in retrospect, Probably didn't matter, but I thought it was a good decision at the time. So obviously got to enjoy the first night. We went to a lovely dinner with some mutual friends that attend the festival. I thought that was a really lovely evening, and actually caught our first show of the week, or at least part of it, a band that was called Omnigin, which is really, I guess, like a melodic death metal band that a friend of a friend was in. And for the 10 or 15 minutes that we were there, I thought they did an admirable job, but unfortunately we missed the bulk of their set. But I was happy to support them in that endeavor. What did you think of Omnigin?
It was great to see Ben Timely live for the first time. I was surprised that at the blast beats were not coming from an actual drummer, which took me a few seconds to notice, probably thanks to the 2 bottles of wine we downed during dinner. But they were good. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that in a live setting before, but it didn't bother me at all. It was pretty cool, and a nice little 10-minute pre-show to 4 days of madness. So it was nice to kind of go to a different area of town and see a different type of band. And then thanks to Patrick for his generous gifts and for inviting us along. And that was cool. I can't think of a time where I was so excited to just get to bed. Like that night, I was so happy to just go to sleep. So thank you for the accommodations on Tuesday night.
Oh, no worries. It was a great start to the week. I was particularly looking forward to Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday afternoon, we held the first and certainly not the last annual Metal Exchange luncheon. A number of our Patreon fans, a number of our listeners of the podcast who happened to be in Atlanta for the week joined us, and it was nothing short of I don't want to say spectacular, but it was everything I could have hoped for out of a lunch. Went to the Vortex, a staple for us in Atlanta when we go down there. We've probably been there 20 times at this point. But the crowd that showed up was well in excess of 20 or 25 people. Really took up almost half the restaurant, if not more. And I just thought it was a fantastic way to get together, break bread, and really just get everyone amped for the rest of the week. So to all that attended, thank you. To all that missed it, we hope you join us next year. And we kept it, kind of close to the vest. We didn't want hundreds of people showing up, so we didn't really announce it publicly except for a select group. But to those that joined or to those that want to join next year, the more the merrier.
Yeah, that was really nice. Good way to kind of get to meet the people that we hadn't met in person as of yet. And it was good. Great meal, good people. I'm sure the waitress didn't appreciate having to wait on that many people at one time, but it is what it is sometimes. And a nice little tradition that I thought we could start, and it seemed to be very well received amongst those who attended. So I'm glad we did that. Yeah,
me too. And it really just kind of set the stage for everything. And I tried to take care of the waitress as best I could, given what she had to deal with for that lunch. But the show kicked off with a band that I am a little surprised that made it, but in retrospect, I guess it makes sense. The show kicked off on Wednesday with Aries Descendant. I loved their album last year. I thought it was one of the better albums of 2024. I had no doubt that Jonah was going to get to the fest. I had a little concern over Nicholas Sani, the singer, but I love that guy's voice. And to hear him sing live was nothing short of an absolute pleasure for me. I love his band Defecto. I loved his work with Evil Masquerade. I loved his solo album, which came out earlier this year. It was just really, really good to hear him sing live. And although I don't think the mix was great, and I should note that the other guys in the band were, I think, Americans that kind of filled in on the various instruments, guitars, bass, drums, etc. This was a treat to kind of kick off the fest. Again, just hearing him sing live and hearing some of those keyboard patches with the melodies of those songs, great way to kick off the show.
Yeah, it was great. The only thing was that it was short. I think they finished it like in under 45 minutes. And so I don't know if maybe they just didn't have enough material rehearsed because, like you said, they had some local musicians. I think I noticed Alex Parra up there. So yeah, they played like probably about 35 minutes of their own material, and then they wrapped things up with a very cool cover of Metallica's No Leaf Clover, which kind of fits with their symphonic style. So that was a cool.
I never liked that song when Metallica did it. I loved the cover like so much that I actually want to go back and listen to the Metallica version. I was like so pleasantly surprised by that selection that, and you're right, it does fit very well. But I was intrigued by that.
Yeah, that was cool. And it was, and you know what was nice? The having a live keyboard player. So, you know, shout out to Jonah for doing a hell of a job. It just, there were a couple of bands, including, the next band, Secret Sphere, where I thought having a live keyboard player really made a difference, especially when, you're talking about, you know, keyboard driven music. So, that was good. But, I believe that was their first ever, gig, and I thought they did a hell of a job on their first time out. I mean, we know that Jonah and Nicholas are you know, consummate professionals and musicians, but for, you know, it's always tough when it's like the very first time everybody's playing together, and I thought they really rose to the occasion. I thought, yeah, you're right, like the mix could have been a little bit better, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment. Really nice way to just kick off the festival.
Well, not to be outdone, but my band of the night came on next, and that was Secret Sphere. It is wild to think about the fact that I have not seen Secret Sphere live since 2003, which was ProgPower 4. So you're talking over 20 years since this band has played the States, and I thought they just put on a really enjoyable set. The selection of music was great. Not perfect. I would have liked to have heard some of the older stuff or a little more of it, but I thought it was a really good selection. I thought the performance was very good. I thought the mix sounded better than Aries. And for my money, it was probably one of the better sets of that night, probably the best set of that night, although there was a lot of good music to come.
Absolutely. This was my first time finally getting to see Secret Sphere. They did a nice job playing songs across 6 different albums, with the majority coming from the Lifeblood album. But it was really great to finally see the band with their original singer. I thought they did a really nice job. Caleb really enjoyed their set. He was surprised because he remembered Secret Sphere being one of those bands that he just like blindly bought a CD from, like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and like just one of those bands he probably hadn't thought about in a couple of decades. And so it was great to see them come back and really do a nice job. I just gotta love those Italians. They always bring it at center stage.
Yeah, it's no question. And there'd be more Italians on stage later, but we'll get there. I was happy that Eclipse, the third band, came back. I'm going to turn this one over to you. What were your thoughts on Eclipse? Because I know that not only are we both fans of the band, but even you more so than I have kind of gravitated to that newer material.
I thought they were phenomenal. I was nervous at first because I think that like they were a little bit, I don't know if rocky's the right word. They were like, it was a little rocky right off the get go. But once they got it, like finished that first song, they really like sank in and just really brought it. And, you know, they didn't really play much in the way of like older material. I don't even think they went as far back as Bleed and Scream, but, I enjoyed all the songs that they did play. I really enjoy the tracks from the Megalomanium albums, and Viva La Victoria is a great tune. So, you know, even though it was, you know, they didn't play the old shit, so to speak, I love all their newer material, and they're just such a fun live band. Like just everybody just was great. Everybody was on their game. I love that they played Downfall of Eden, which is like probably my favorite Eclipse song. So that was my first of hearing a band play my favorite song by them, first of a couple to come. Just I thought a phenomenal set. Is Eric Martinson? Is he the singer?
Yes.
He was tremendous. Just a great front man. They managed to squeeze in 12 songs in an hour. I couldn't say enough. This was definitely the highlight of Wednesday for me.
Nice. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I thought they were good. They're always a lot of fun. They brought the energy. I do agree with you. It started off a little slow, but it absolutely picked up. I would have changed the set list personally. Not that the songs they played were bad. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that they have so much material at this point that, like, I think you could probably throw songs in a hat and find other ones that you wanted to hear. I thought that they were a really nice contrast to the first two bands because it was really more of that upbeat party style, and certainly a contrast to the next band, Green Carnation. Now, this was one of the first disappointments for me for the night. Not the performance, not the show. I actually thought they were the best sounding band of the night. The issue with Green Carnation is that they played their entire new album, A Dark Poem, Part 1, The Shores of Melancholia, which, by the way, great album. I really enjoyed the fact that they got to play the whole thing. However, they were cut short. They played for about 40, maybe 45 minutes. I don't know if there were, I believe, technical issues that prevented them from going on time. I won't go into all the details, but needless to say, they started about a half an hour late. And so they had their time cut. The album was great. I just wanted to know what else they had in store. And we really just don't know what the rest of that set list looked like.
Yeah. I by the time they finally got on, like, I was starting to run out of steam. So I stuck around for their first 2 or 3 songs. They sounded phenomenal. I watched them from the one of the entryways, and I thought they sounded really good. Their sound always sounds so tight. They're just such a good live band. But at that point, I just was kind of like, I was tired, and at that point, I didn't know if they were going to get a full set, and if Visions of Atlantis weren't going to come on for another hour and a half or whatever it was. So at that point, I just decided to call it a night.
Yeah, I get it. And I was facing a little bit of fatigue myself, but I muscled through, saw the Green Carnation set, as I said, best sounding set of the night, no question. Perhaps the biggest surprise was Visions of Atlantis. Now, they're obviously headlining the night, but I just didn't know what to expect, and they just exceeded my expectations. I thought they sounded great. They were very tight. They just are coming across more than ever before as like a professional band. And you can see why at this point they're kind of doing headlining shows. I don't know that I would have had them in my top bands of the weekend necessarily, but the performance kind of warranted it. And so I did leave a few songs before the end of the set because fatigue got the better of me. But all in all, I thought that they put on a really good show. And top to bottom, there's an argument to be made that night one was one of the stronger nights of the festival. Just one good band after another. I was happy that I got to see that Vision set because I wasn't, they tour a lot, but for whatever reason, I just never get a chance to see them.
Yeah, the portion of their set from a couple of years ago, I was like, wow, they've really come into their own as a live act. So the people that I know who did see the set said it was great. I wanted to see it, had intentions to see it, but at that point, like, we were waiting for our housemates to get in from their flight, and that was around midnight. And so I just really didn't know. If I'd known that Visions of Atlantis were actually going to go on time, I probably would have stuck around and watched a couple of tunes. But it really, the weekend was like a tale of just conserving energy at the times where it was needed, and I, unfortunately, like, I finally ran out of steam on Saturday. There's a point where I think you just are like, you know what, I'm all done with ProgPower. It's been 5 days. Had a great time, but it's, probably didn't sleep as much as I should have. Probably didn't drink as much water as I should have. And, oh, by the way, I'm moving as soon as I get home. So I think part of my brain was not in Atlanta with everybody else this year. that though I really still had such a wonderful time. But like, there were times where like, if I wasn't in center stage, I was like, oh, I really need to get home. There's like a million things I need to do. But then as soon as I got into center stage, it's like all of a sudden the aura surrounds you, as Karnak would say, and you just you're just like enveloped in that love and that feeling and that music, and you're just like, all right, I'm good for another set. But by Saturday evening, my feet were killing me. I was tired. All I wanted to do was just like lay down and eat takeout on the couch. And that's what I did. But anyway, day two was, from everything that I saw, was very, very good. I really enjoyed just the different bands that played. Like it's such a nice mix of genres. If you're like not a metal fan or like a casual fan, you're like, wow, 5 metal bands in a row. Like, isn't that boring? It's like, no, like comparing Green Carnation to Eclipse or Visions of Atlantis or Secret Sphere or Ares Descendant is like, oil and water if you really know your metal. So, day one was great. And, there was stuff on day two though that I was, even more excited for.
Yeah. Day two started off with a bang. In that I went to lunch with Secret Sphere and some other folks, which was kind of cool. It was unplanned, but it wound up coming together on Thursday morning before we had to head over to the venue. So that was fun. These guys were like the nicest guys. That they were so happy to be here, and they were going to kind of take the sights in before they left to go back to Italy on Friday. So really, really good time. Some of the nicest people.
We went back to the Vortex.
Nice. I am not surprised by that at all. So I think we both ate well on Thursday. But when the concert kicked off with Alterium, I think of all the bands, they met the expectations exactly what I expected. Insofar as they were every bit as good as I expected. I don't think they were the best band of the weekend, but I had solid expectations and they put on a solid performance. The band was good. You can tell that there's a lot of potential there. I think the album is just really, really catchy and it comes off great live. And Nicoletta's vocals were just off the charts. And this band was everywhere. And I mean everywhere. They were hanging out on Wednesday night. I saw them on Saturday. I mean, this band was like making the best out of the weekend. And I love that because
I saw them every single night. They were
yes.
there.
And I remember like the old days where like bands would come in and stay for 3 or 4 days instead of just flying out the next day. And it reminded me of the way it used to be where it was just one big hangout the whole time. So kudos to them. They actually got a lot of shout outs from other bands, including Majestica, which is kind of cool. But they definitely deserved their spot on the bill. I was so happy to see them. And I have no doubt they'll be back. I think they went over very well.
Agreed. Again, I think it was like the curse of the opening band as far as the sound goes, like mix wise. But again, they did great. Nicoletta, who I happened to stop, I saw her on Saturday and asked her for a photo. Could not have been nicer. They were great. Love the album. Love some of the singles they've released since the album. Love the Sabaton cover. I thought they did a great job. And for 2 days in a row, I thought that the opening band really set the tone for days 1 and 2. Love the set. Again, the Italians just knocking it out of the park. So good stuff there.
Did you get a chance to see Maastricht?
A little bit. I saw the first 2 or 3 songs, and then I went back to the Airbnb for a bit. I didn't come back until the end of November's Doom's set, so I will let you kind of take the reins till we get back to that.
So, as I had said to Rich, one of our Patreon members, I said to him, Maastricht is either going to be the set of the weekend or an unmitigated disaster because of just the complexity and density of the music. I had real concerns that this was going to be an awful set, and I mean and awful set because I just didn't know how they were going to pull off this craziness live. Not that they're not accomplished musicians, but there's so much going on in the background that even if they piped it in, I just thought it was going to be kind of messy and sloppy. So I had extreme reservations, but it turned out they were really good. It was not the set of the weekend, but they were really, really tight. And the music came across live a lot better than I expected. So kudos for them for pulling it off. And I love the power metal and then the prog counterpoint to that. I thought it was really, really well done. I thought that they played 10 songs and they kind of touched all three of their albums, which was nice. A solid set and a band that I think people have to keep an eye on just because the music is really good. You just got to spend some time with it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They sounded good from the little bit that I heard. I had to at least see some of it because I know Patrick wouldn't let me live it down if I didn't. I just needed a little bit of a midday break, and so I took that because I knew that particularly the last two bands I didn't want to miss any of. So that was what I did.
Well, you did miss some good stuff, and I hate to say it, so I don't say it to rub it in, but just in the spirit of completion, Ancients knocked my socks off. I had expectations that they were going to be very good. And they were very, very good. Their brand of metal sounded good. I was in the mood for something a little bit heavier, and them and November's Doom back to back was like a really cool 1-2 punch. Two very different styles. Obviously, Ancients a lot more, I guess, prog metal. November's Doom a little doomier, but they keep the song so interesting that it was a nice 1-2 punch back to back. Again, the November's Doom guys couldn't have been any nicer. I'm so happy that they got to play the festival. They're coming to New York in October. I'm going to do everything I can to check out one of their sets again, just because I thought that they were so good and such like humble guys. I thought it was really nice hanging out with them as well. And so I thought that, again, two replacement bands, but two bands that did a really good job on the middle of day two before you got to your back-to-back co-headliners. With Vola and Sonata Arctica. You again talking about two bands that couldn't sound any different. Vola at this point is one of the most well-oiled machines in all of metal. Their light show combined with their sound, combined with just the energy and passion of their performance, band of night two, no question about it. I thought that their performance was nothing short of fantastic in every sense of the word. Now, it's funny because Nick, our mutual friend, and I had a little bit of not a debate, but a discussion because I don't think he loved the songwriting as much.
I saw you take a swing at him. That was,
crazy. No, I would never. But we did. I was curious to hear his opinion. Although he appreciated it, he thought there was a bit of sameness to the music, and I don't disagree that there's a bit of a formula there. But the formula is perfect. Your thoughts on Vola? Did you catch the whole set?
I may have ducked out at the absolute very end just to I don't remember. I think I did catch all of it. I just want to mention November's Doom briefly. I caught the end of their set. I thought they sounded really good. It was just very heavy stuff, and shout out to Larry for taking the time to chat with us. Super nice guy. He did a long interview with the MSR cast prior to ProgPower. So it's cool to see them. I'm glad I caught a little bit of that. But yeah, Vola blew me away. This was my second favorite set of the whole 4 days, which is crazy because my expectations were sky high because of how good they were the last time they played at ProgPower, and I didn't have expectations at that time, and so they blew me out of the water that time. But this time, I think I enjoyed them even more because they played my favorite Vola song, which I didn't think in a million years they were going to play, because I don't even know if they played anything off of In Mazes the last time. If they did, they didn't play Starburn, but this time they did, and I marked out. It was the 7th song, and I was having a good time, but when they started playing that song, I just went into headbang mode. I was, and at that point, they had me. Like, I was in for the rest of the way. Just like, everything they do is just so crisp and clean, and the lights, the way they sync with the music, just an unbelievably wonderful visual and, audio experience. If you haven't seen these guys live, they're phenomenal. And you know me, I'm not even like a big prog head, but these guys are the kind of band where, like, seeing them live changes your whole perspective of them. Like, I liked them quite a bit before I saw them live, but they've turned me into such a fan with how good they sound live. And I thought they did a really nice job kind of spanning the years. I mean, most of the tracks were from Friend of a Phantom and Witness, but they threw, some tracks from the 2 previous albums as well. But man, Starburn was an absolute highlight for me. I could not believe that they played that. Knops even joked with me via text earlier in the day, like play Starburn. And I said to him, like, I would mark out, like, that's my favorite song by them. And so when they started playing it, I was like, no frickin' way. Like, I just could not believe, of all the songs they could have picked from that album, they picked one, and that was it. So that made my night. That made my whole weekend, honestly.
That's awesome.
Phenomenal.
I'm so happy when that happens. It's just so, I don't want to say endearing, but there's just something so special about it. And I'll say this, they were so good that I thought that Sonata Arctica, the headliner, actually paled in comparison. Not that it was a bad set. I don't want to say that, but there was something about Sonata's set that just lacked a little bit of energy to me. And the sound was just not as good as they were on 70,000 Tons when I saw them just 8 months ago. The set list was essentially identical. So it wasn't like I was not expecting the set list. But I just thought the performance was better on the cruise. And maybe it was something about being outside in the middle of the Caribbean with the night sky and bodies flying everywhere. Something about it was better there. That's not to say I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed their set on Thursday night. But the reality is I've seen better performances from them, and I've seen better sounding sets. And so they underwhelmed a little bit, despite the fact that I certainly enjoyed it.
I feel like those are all fair points. I, at one point, went and found a seat. I just, my feet were not working with me on this trip. And so I didn't want to miss anything. So I went and sat down. I think I came back down for the encore. But it was an interesting set, because I feel like they started with 2 tracks from the new album, then jumped over to Flag in the Ground and I Have a Right. And then, like, as the set kept going, it started to veer more to the older albums, which there was a stretch of like Talala and Last Amazing Grace and San Sebastian, Broken, Replica, My Land, Full Moon, Wolf and Raven, Don't Say a Word, like that whole second.
Oh, it ends very strong.
Yeah. And I hadn't seen Tony since he went all Silver Fox, man. He was looking good with the white hair. I loved it. He kind of reminded me of like the heavy metal Terry Silver. So
that's a great comparison. I love that.
But yeah, he's always. I was absolutely of all the things of the set. The thing that really blew me away was how strong his voice is still after all these years. It's like it's a lot like with Timo Colti-Pelto, fellow Finn. They just make it look so easy, no matter how much older they get. Fabio is another one. It's like, it's just incredible to me. So, really, I was very, very impressed with his vocal performance.
Yeah, I do. I think that was certainly the highlight. The band just sounded a little either flat or the mix was off, something about it. But good way to end the night. And then we get to the main fest, right? Days 3 and 4, Friday and Saturday. I think that Friday and Saturday took more of a hit overall, including the replacements, than, say, Wednesday and Thursday. I really didn't know what to expect from a lot of these bands. And To say I was pleasantly surprised is an understatement, especially with some of the stuff that we'll talk about. But the main fest started with a band called Sometime in February, and this is an instrumental prog band that's signed to Inside Out. So they're on a big label, but for whatever reason, I feel like the label does not push them the right way. I had checked out their material, and I enjoy some instrumental prog, but I thought that they did a really nice job live. Much better than I expected insofar as they were tight. They were really, really tight for some really complex music, almost like a Liquid Tension type of style, but just between the guitar work and the bass and the drums, just a phenomenal group of musicians. I thought the drums were a little too high in the mix, and so at certain points it drowned out the other instruments. But you want to talk about nice guys. I wound up going backstage after their set because Nick had actually sponsored them. So I was hanging out with them for a while after their set, and you couldn't have met a bunch of nicer guys that were just so humble and so happy to be playing at this festival. So I hope that people pay attention to them and listen to their stuff because they certainly have the technical chops.
I'm glad to hear that. I heard I know our friend Mike Johnson was raving about their set, said they were phenomenal. So I missed this. I kind of came in. I wanted to come in and start with Majestica, who was the band I was sponsoring, and just to kind of fill in some of these gaps with as far as like the changes in the lineup. Wednesday stayed basically the same, except for the headline band changed from Hammerfall to Fabio Leone's Dawn of Victory to Visions of Atlantis. And then on Thursday, The Ocean, which I kind of forgot was even on this lineup because they canceled so quickly after it was announced. They were replaced by Ancients, and November's Doom replaced Iron Savior. So 3 of the 11 first 2-day slots were replacements. Sometime in February came in as a replacement for Temic, and due to that, Majestica, who was supposed to be opening, got bumped up a spot and ended up playing second after Sometime in February. What were your thoughts on Majestica after 12 years since Rainseed was supposed to grace center stage? What were your thoughts on this band making their first appearance here in the U.S.?
There was something infectious about their performance, even if the music itself isn't like my favorite stuff at this point. In other words, I like power metal. I love power metal, but I just don't know that I would gravitate towards that over, Operation Mindcrime or something like that, right? It's like not my favorite stuff, but their performance combined with the great music was infectious. And there was something, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, literally palpable about Tommy's joy that you could feel in the crowd. It was literally palpable. And so their set was great. And better than that, the crowd went absolutely nuts during this set. I think more than any other set that night. And we'll get to that, but they had more people standing on their feet during that set than maybe any other set that night. That's how over they were. I feel like I'm not even doing it justice just to kind of explain the feel in the room that when they were playing. You will do a better job, but I saw you having the time of your life in front of the stage. So please do the honors and fill in the gaps for me.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I didn't have a damn clue what was going on behind me. Like I was dead center, right in front. My eyes were glued to that stage. The only bummer is that Tommy's vocals were kind of drowned out because of how close that I was standing, and that's kind of the pitfall, so to speak, of being in the pit, is that you're not in the best spot for where the sound travels and stuff like that. Sometimes it works out. Most of the time, the vocals tend to suffer the most when you're in that spot. That said, it was something I was willing to forego to be that physically close to one of my all-time favorite bands. This was a huge bucket list moment for me. People were chanting 1912 at one point, to which like Tommy was like, that is a very good Rainseed album, which I thought was hilarious. He did mention at one point that like he would love to come back and do more Rainseed material, which I would have, even if they had just thrown one in there, I would have marked out, although not that I wasn't marking out the whole time anyway. They stuck to the Majestica stuff, no Christmas stuff, but the 5 songs from Powertrain, 4 songs from Above the Sky, and then the 2 singles, A New Beginning and Metal United. But it was so much fun. Like it's just fun music, and just to be able to check off them and Power Quest thanks to ProgPower. It's interesting because as insane as next year's lineup is top to bottom, I don't know that there's any band that I'm as excited as I was to see Majestica at ProgPower 24. It just was that extra special bucket list sort of thing that makes being a sponsor all the more rewarding and special. And so not to mention that backstage the guys were so nice. It was Petter's birthday. They gave him a cake on stage, which was great. He turned 40 at ProgPower, which I told him was good luck because I know you turned 40 at ProgPower. I turned 40. Actually, no, I don't think you did, because if I turned 40 at ProgPower, that means there was no ProgPower in September.
I've turned just about everything else at ProgPower except 40.
Our friend Amy has turned 40 at ProgPower, so it's good luck. So that was kind of cool. The other guys, Chris and Tommy and Joel, were all super, super nice. Chris is a riot. I don't think he ever took his sunglasses off on stage or off. Tommy's a sweetheart. He remembered me from just years of us going back and forth on Facebook Messenger, and he was like, when he realized it was me, he gave me a big bear hug, and so I almost got a little teary at that. That was a really cool moment. And I mentioned to Joel that I appreciated his other band. What is his other band? I remembered it in time to talk to him. Veonity. I was like telling him that I enjoyed their most recent album, which I did. I wasn't just saying that. So just another wonderful experience sponsoring a band. I feel like whoever I get next year will just be like a bonus. Cause any band next year is like, it's like, there's like 17 headliners playing next year.
That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, we'll run down that lineup at the end, and then we're going to do a bonus episode before the end of the month, just talking about our thoughts about the lineup in longer form. But yeah, this was awesome. Was super, super excited to get to sponsor them, and kind of took a little bit of the sting of losing Night Flight Orchestra. That was kind of the biggest loss for me on this whole lineup, with the Fabio Dawn of Victory set kind of shortly behind that. But this made the whole thing worth it, and I could see why Glenn saw them as an opener, because I think that they would have really been they would have just really brought the energy to like you said, to a palpable feel right off the get-go, and that's a great way to kick off a festival.
I have little doubt they will be back just because of how over they were. But for my money, it was really the next 2 bands that I think I was most excited to see on day 3. And it starts with the Australian band Lakor. Now, this is a band that when they got announced, I had given serious consideration to sponsoring, and I wound up getting Vandenplas, but Lakor has been on my list for years. I love their sound. I had no idea that they would be as good as they were live, though. And they tore the roof off the place. The pit started. Our mutual friend Pat wound up losing his mind. I don't think he had ever heard the band, but he was like just awestruck by how good they were live. And they were so good that I almost contemplated seeing them in New York just a day or 2 after the festival, because I wanted to see them again. My hope is that tour is selling well, because I would love to see them again. They were phenomenal, and they were my band of the night on day 3. Although Rivers of Nil was not far behind, they were really good as well. And you want to talk about nice guys? These were some of the nicest guys I met the entire weekend, and they tore the house down too. It was just a superb 1-2 punch in the middle of night 3.
I think I asked you at one point, like, has there ever been like that long of a stretch of just brutal music at ProgPower, like just 2 straight hours of that? Those are 2 heavy ass bands. I missed most of Lakor because I was backstage with Majestica at the time, but I did catch a good bit of Rivers of Nile, and they wow, that was some heavy stuff, and they were gracious enough to come and hang out with us after the show, or after the night was over, and they were a fun bunch of guys. Loved chatting with them about all things music and video games and sports. I know one of the guys gave you a hard time for being a Giants fan, so I just didn't talk about my football allegiance and left you to fend for yourself.
Listen, when I showed up to your house and I saw a guy in an Eagles jersey, I couldn't help but make comments as a Giants fan. But the reality is, given how bad the Giants have been the last, decade and a half, there was really not much. I didn't have much of a leg to stand on. But those guys were incredibly nice. The band is going to go on to bigger and better things, and they've been, touring incessantly, putting out new music. They were really tight. I wish them nothing but the best. But speaking of really tight, the next band was not something I was looking forward to. Project. Really an all-star group playing a bunch of all-star covers from the 70s. But wow, they didn't disappoint. They sounded so good, and were just the consummate professionals doing Yes covers and Rush covers and ELP and all this other stuff from the 70s. It was a really pleasant surprise to see them. I was not expecting their set to be as good as it was. And there's certain people like our friend Lane who just went absolutely bonkers over this. It was like you went back in time or something like that. I can see the appeal, and they definitely did not disappoint.
I think like saying that going back in time is pretty spot on. It kind of felt like a time machine of stuff. It's stuff that we didn't grow up on because we were a little bit younger, but it's stuff that like I know my mom listened to a lot of this stuff. She wasn't like a big prog head, but this was all during her time, and so it was cool to hear it all. I was sitting in the seats for the first 2 medleys. It was an ELP medley. They played Carnival 9, the whole First Impression, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. Really, really cool hearing that. Then they did a UK medley. Then I just heard the opening notes to Closer to the Heart, and I was off and running. I jumped out of my seat, ran down to the floor, joined my friends, and they did a lovely Rush medley, including The Trees and Free Will and Red Barchetta, Analog Kid Gloves. Like it was awesome. The Yes stuff I knew a lot of. It was cool to hear Roundabout and Long Distance Run Around. The Circle, I wouldn't call it a pit, so to speak, but during Roundabout there was literally just the most like polite circle of all time, which our friends Rich and Patrick were a part of. I know that members of the band had pointed out that was one of the like coolest things they'd ever seen, and I thought that was such a perfect song to do it during. So that was really cool. The Genesis and the King Crimson stuff I was a little less knowledgeable on. I really don't know the older Peter Gabriel era of Genesis well at all. But overall, like the musicianship was out of this world, and this is not like the easiest stuff to play. And they really, you would think you were watching the original members. The drummer had a few less pieces of equipment than Neil Peart would have, but I mean, other than that, it was really cool, and I'm glad that we watched it. They were a last minute replacement for Van den Plas. Alessandro Del Vecchio, who I believe the keyboard player for Van den Plas, was the vocalist, and his vocals were outstanding. Great stuff. It was an unenviable position for both Rivers to replace Night Flight Orchestra and for Project to replace Van den Plas, but I thought both bands really did a hell of a job, and I think people really enjoyed what both bands brought to the table, as different as it was.
I agree with that, and the night ended with a band who a lot of people were excited about, but the performance that they brought was not what was expected. And I say that because the headliners for night 3 was Ord Nogan. A lot of people were really, really looking forward to them, our friend Charles being one of them. And the problem for them was that their lead singer and guitar player got sick. And so, as the old adage goes, the show must go on, and the show did go on, albeit with piped-in vocals and piped-in guitars from Sieb while the rest of the band played behind it. And given what that was, or what I thought it was going to be, it was better than I expected. That being said, as much energy as they were putting forth, and they were trying their best, given the circumstances, it kind of was what it was. So it was better than I expected, given the tremendous loss. But I admit I only stayed for about a half dozen or so songs.
Yeah, I left before this. I think it was just that really took the wind out of my sails, and I had been planning on seeing at least a handful of songs, but just getting to that point where you're just running out of steam. And I think I was ready to just kind of kick it back at the house and just chill a little bit. And so that's what I did. I'm glad that they stuck it out, made the best of it. Sounds like everybody had a really good time, all things considered. They made a little effigy of Sieb to take his place while he wasn't there, which was pretty much just a balloon with a smiley face drawn on it. All things considered, I thought that they did an admirable job, and it's such a crappy position to be put in, but they made the best of it, and I have a feeling they'll be back with Sieb in tow over the next few years, and they'll make up for it. But it sucks, like, especially when you have a headline band. They managed to stick through all of the bullshit for a whole year. They finally, the time has come, and the singer can't even get on the damn plane. So it's a bummer, but they made the best of it, and I'm glad people got to enjoy it.
Yeah, especially, again, the show must go on, like I said. But as we roll on to the fourth and final day, fatigue was getting the best of me. I actually missed Lux Terminus, the opening band. I heard very good things. Apparently they sounded good, but I just didn't get a chance to see it. And although I had never really heard a note from Night Demon, a lot of people said, oh, this is going to be something that you might enjoy. So I didn't catch the entire set, but I caught at least 2/3 or 3/4 of their set, and they were really good. They were really tight for kind of simpler, a little more simple metal or power metal adjacent type stuff. I was impressed. I actually am going to go back and check out some of their albums because I could see it being really good. They were a pleasant surprise for me. I wasn't expecting much, and I'm glad that I got to see the little bit of the set that I did.
Yeah, we decided that we were going to be fashionably late to day 4, so we went out. We actually took a little bit of a detour out of Midtown and found a really good Asian Mexican fusion restaurant and had some tacos and just did something a little bit different. I never really, to be honest, when the replacement bands were announced, particularly for day 4, I never really had the chance to like sit down and try to get into Night Demon or Saigon Kick or Lux Terminus, unfortunately. And so I didn't feel super compelled to make it on time. And honestly, I was kind of like huffing, huffing wind at this point, like just trying to save whatever little bit of energy I had left for particularly Cemetery Skyline, who was which was going to be the highlight for me for this day. But I heard so many good things about all the other bands. Lux Terminus, I heard they put on just a great technical showcase. Night Demon, I heard, brought the power and the energy. Did you get to hear much about or see much of Saigon Kick? I caught the end of their set, maybe the last 2 or 3 songs, and it looked like they were having a very, very fun time.
I did, and I was familiar with the hits, and I was familiar with the Lizard album, so I have familiarity with the band. But the interplay between Jeff Scott Soto and Jason Bieler is really interesting to behold. I've seen them in concert when they're not doing Saigon Kick stuff, obviously, but seeing them on stage in this setting was really nice. I'm never going to claim to be the biggest Saigon Kick fan, but I enjoyed the set. I thought it was a professional set. And for a band that kind of just came together out of the blue to do these classic Saigon Kick songs, I thought they did a good job. And I actually wonder if they're going to actually do something under that moniker together, just because it came across really good. And a lot of people who were fans of them back in the early 90s were probably losing their shit hearing some of that stuff.
Yeah, and cool that Jeff Scott Soto makes another ProgPower appearance. I feel like it took him a while to get to ProgPower, but once he got there, I feel like he's been there almost every year since then.
I'm not sure that he's ever going to leave, so that's that. Cemetery Skyline goes on next, and this is what I was really looking forward to on day 4. And they were great. And I got to be honest, like, as much as I enjoyed the set up front, and I really did, I just had a great time watching that set from in front of the stage. I'm spoiled. They got announced for 70,000 tons, so I'm going to get to do this at least 1 or 2 more times in the not so distant future. But their music is just so catchy, and the melodies are just so memorable that hearing that album live, for all intents and purposes, including the Roy Orbison cover, was just really fun for me. I thought they were fantastic.
Yeah, this was a great set. I at this point, like, I could not stand anymore. I think I stood for like the first 2 or 3 songs, and then I went over to one of the entrance ways so I'd have something to lean on. So I didn't miss any of their set. I wouldn't have forgiven myself if I did. They did a hell of a job. I was so excited to hear. I think it was "In Darkness," which was my favorite song from their debut album. Good stuff. Just a really good set. Really well done. The musicians were very just tight and professional, and I think the crowd was just really into this. I think there was just a lot of people that were looking forward to the set, and they brought that energy with them for this. So, for a band that's pretty new, even though the musicians are all seasoned, I thought they did a hell of a job.
Yeah, and you want to talk about a tough act to follow. Scald had a very unenviable position, A, having to follow up this set, and B, just playing a brand of music that I don't know if the ProgPower crowd ever really was prepared for the most part, because it's not really metal. It's this folky brand of ethnic rock. I don't even know how you describe this band. I'm not even going to try. What I will say, though, is I tried listening to one of their albums, their most recent album, and it did absolutely nothing for me. But curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to stay for their set. I was going to stay for Symphony X anyway, so I decided to watch the beginning of the Scald set. And it was almost like I was completely intoxicated by what I was hearing and watching, and at the same time enthralled by just the visuals that I was seeing in front of me. And this wound up becoming one of my favorite sets of the entire weekend. I have no idea what the I'm not even sure if I'll ever listen to them again, but what I saw for 90 minutes was unbelievable. The intensity combined with the pageantry, combined with the melody, which I just guess didn't pick up on when I was listening to the albums, and the way these songs build, almost like an anathema quality to them. I was blown away. So much so that we took our annual group photo for the podcast, which was fantastic. And then I ran back inside to watch the end of their set. I didn't want to miss what they were doing because I was enjoying it so much. by far the biggest surprise. I had zero expectations, and it wound up being one of my favorite sets.
So many people were just raving about this, and I get why it's not for everyone, but I was really, really impressed by the musicianship like that was shown here. It was unlike anything I ever saw. And I just don't think that the listening to the album does justice to how it's presented in a live setting, how like feeling the sound and not just listening to it, but feeling it.
Yes.
It just took it to a whole different level. Just a super, super, super impressive, totally different. It's funny, like anytime people question these oddball bands that Glenn chooses, he ends up being right, most of the time.
Yep.
And I know he posted that that was one of the proudest sets that he's ever put on that stage, and after witnessing it, it's easy to see why. It was so totally different, but yet made sense for that festival. In some weird way, it made complete sense. And I think that's why there was a ton of people watching it and really enjoying it.
Yeah, just a complete surprise. And the surprises wouldn't end there. Symphony X was the last band to close out the festival, as they have several times in the past. And to their credit, I often give them a hard time about set lists and things like that. But in the past, they have done things at ProgPower that just felt a little bit different, not least of which playing the entire Divine Wings of Tragedy song the last time they played the festival. I did not see the set list to start the tour, so I really didn't know if they were doing the same old, or if they were doing something different for this anniversary tour. Having seen them on 70,000 Tons earlier in the year, I thought I knew what the set list was going to be. And for the most part, they did play a lot of stuff that I heard earlier in the year. However, when we covered a lot of these new albums, such as Underworld, I had a different appreciation for some of this newer material. They take the stage, and all of a sudden, they start playing Of Sins and Shadows. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening here? Because I didn't think they were opening the tour with that song. And they played the entire thing, and then they went right into Sea of Lies. And I'm like, wow, this is... So talk about a throwback to the older fans. We're starting off with the first two songs from Divine Wings. And then they started playing Out of the Ashes. And I said to myself, my God, are they playing the entire Divine Wings of Tragedy? Like, I didn't know what was going on at this point. But I had never seen Out of the Ashes live, so I completely marked out for that song. And then all of a sudden, for the first time in 20-something years, they play The Accolade. And I lost my fucking mind. Like, that to me was like a song I never thought I would hear live again. And although they didn't play all of Divine Wings, they played the first four songs, and I was impressed, not only because I was hearing this stuff, but because I just didn't know that the band had it in them anymore. And then they went back and they played more of a classic set list with some of their newer material, but then it was time for the encore. And they opened with Evolution, The Grand Design, and then they played Communion in the Oracle, one of, if not my favorite song from Five, and then they played The Death of Balance, another song that they haven't played in nearly 10 years. So I got like a little bit of a Five medley, which I wasn't expecting, before they kind of closed the set with Set the World Afire. And I got to be honest, this set list was just such a pleasant surprise for people in that room that have been listening to this band for 25 or 30 years. And they sounded great. Russell was on fire. Whether he was doing the angry Russell vocals or just the clean, smooth sounds of The Accolade, they were just on fire. And just a kudos to them for ending what was a fantastic festival from top to bottom.
Yeah, I tapped out before they went on. I was done, as I said earlier. Like I was, when you have a lot
going on. You have a lot going on right now.
Yeah. And you know what? I was starting to wonder if I had made a huge mistake when I heard what the first four songs were. In retrospect, The Accolade probably was the big regret for me, but the majority of the set list I had seen last year, minus the five stuff, which I would have liked to have heard. Definitely, they did play Evolution when I saw them, so if they had played Smoke and Mirrors, I would have had serious regrets. They did at the next show.
Yes.
which it's starting to look like maybe Symphony X is going to change up their set list, because there's only been 2 shows that I've seen the set list for outside of the ProgPower set, but it looks like they have been taking 2 of the slots on the set list and rotating out different songs. I saw that Eve of Seduction made it onto a recent set list, which is another one of my favorite Symphony X songs, and I would have really loved to have heard that live. So, I was a little bit bummed to miss it, but also just kind of like, if I hadn't seen them last year, I probably would have stuck around. But man, I was just ready. So yeah, it was. I think that in spite of all of the issues, the festival ended up being its usual amount of fun, and it just always is interesting no matter what. Going back to ProgPower 10, which we talked about a bit on the last episode that we pulled from our archives. That was my first return back from ProgPower, and even though 4 of the bands I was looking forward to seeing ended up not playing, I went anyway, and I said to you afterwards that I will never miss ProgPower again, and I've stuck to that promise. Even in years where you weren't there, I was still there. So this is the same case where, like, in spite of so many, dropouts and issues and Orden Ogan losing their singer and not getting to see Night Flight Orchestra and Vandenplas canceling at the very last minute, all things considered, it was a hell of a time. But you know what? What we haven't talked about was they, for the first time in as long as I can remember, announced every single band that is slated to play next year over the course of Friday and Saturday, which made for a lot of fun to have these 3 separate video announcements. It really made being in the venue like a musty event. And what followed is one of the most insane all-star lineups. I mean, it reminded me of back in the day, like why we started going in the first place, because every band you were like, Gamma Ray, Angra, like Threshold, Blind Guardian, Pain of Salvation, Devin Townsend. It was just like, one after the other. And that's what this felt like. There's really like, I mean, I would argue that there's 3 headliners on day 1. There's 2 headliners on day 2. I'd say that there's 4 headliners on day 3. And I'd say that there's 4 headliners on day 4. I mean,
yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. And I want to talk about it with you in long form. But this lineup is just stacked. And even bands that are not headliners could probably be in a 4 or a 5 slot, and they're in a 2 slot or opening the festival. I mean, it's nuts. And I don't think there's a better example than that than DGM, who has played this festival, I think, as a 5 slot, certainly as a 4 slot. They're opening day 3. What? How does that happen? And so there's a lot.
That was the opening salvo for Glenn, because that was the first band to be announced. And when that band came up on that screen and people, like, it registered with them that this, normally high slotted band is opening, I think everyone was like, oh shit, this is going to be a pretty special lineup.
And it is. And Sunburst coming back after all these years and not playing, and Voyager, the tearjerker to end the set. Again, we'll get into this, but what a fantastic lineup. And if there were any doubts about their ability to bounce back after this year, I don't think those doubts remain. Now it's just a matter of getting these bands over to play.
Yeah, I'll do a quick rundown of the lineups, but we'll urge you to check out the bonus episode on Patreon, where we discuss our thoughts on the lineup in long form. But day one, we have the Reticent, Noveria, Fabio Leone's Dawn of Victory. I believe they will be performing the entire Dawn of Victory album, which they were supposed to do this year. And then, it always, when I see Threshold not as a headliner, it's just like, okay, this lineup is for real. And Cypher will be the day one headliner. I think I will be seeing them ahead of time. I think they're opening for Blind Guardian this fall. But super strong day one. Day two, we have Fires in the Distance, or I forgot, was it Pelicans to be named later? I forgot what Keith said, that he thought the shirt said ostriches, ostriches in the snow, or something like that. So that's that band's name now. Stardust from Israel, Terra Maze from Australia, Elven King playing their first two albums, Heathen Reel and The Winter Wake, Conception and El Wady. Conception, not headlining. I mean, that tells you something huge. And that was actually the second announcement that would involve Roy Khan, because day two was announced after days 3 and 4. Day 3, DGM, Brainstorm, Crimson Glory in the 3 slot, Hammerfall in the 4 slot. Then the reunited Nevermore, and then Evergrey closing things out, which makes a ton of sense if you followed the festival. And day 4, Sunburst to open, followed by Seven Spires. Roy Khan doing a solo set with Seven Spires, I believe, as his backing band. Have to assume this is going to be a predominantly Camelot set, being that Conception is performing the day before. And then followed by Redemption, a ProgPower returning favorite. Also gives Tom England double duty on Friday, Saturday. And then followed by a really strong 1-2 punch to close things out of The Gathering with Anarchy and Voyager closing things out, which I think that I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'll just keep it brief right now. A lot of people were expecting to hear Sabotage be announced. I don't think there was a better option other than Sabotage than Voyager closing out this festival. I think any sense of disappointment that anybody felt about the last band not being Sabotage was immediately wiped away when they saw the guys and gal from Voyager on that screen. That was just brilliant booking on Glenn's part, and if there was ever a band that deserves that spot to close out ProgPower, Voyager has been the epitome of what this festival is all about. And I love that Glenn chose Evergrey and Voyager as his headliners on his final year, just because there's like a loyalty there, because I think a lot of people would say, hey, Hammerfall or Nevermore or The Gathering should be, bands that are slotted ahead of an Evergrey or a Voyager, but that's not what this festival is all about. So hell of a 4-day lineup. I mean, I was desperate for breaks this year. I don't know when the hell I'm supposed to take a break next year. These are I don't know that there's a band that I don't want to see. That's how good the lineup is, and I mean that. Like, the bands that would be lowest on my list are bands that I actually want to see. So it's going to be no rest for the weary. But yeah, great recap. I'm glad we finally got to go through it. It was nothing but fun, and now we've got something to look forward to a year from now. And we talked about birthday celebrations. I'll be celebrating mine at the festival next year, so that's going to be a lot of fun, especially as the festival comes to an end, or at least this iteration of the festival comes to an end. But the show here at the Metal Exchange goes on, and I know that we are listening to something next week. I feel like it's been quite a while since I've got to pick an album, and I look forward to doing that next week. But this week it is your turn. What am I listening to? I want to wrap up our ProgPower discussion and just say, sure. I just want to say probably the highlight of the entire thing was watching the people that were attending for the first time and watching their reaction to things and seeing them enjoy it as much as they did. In particular, Carrie, Chris, and Rich, all three of them, and Kim as well. Boy, it just seemed like they were having such a good time, and it made me so happy to share that with other people. I remember when we first went and what an impression it made on us. So that was really, really cool.
Well said. I echo those sentiments completely, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because in many ways that was the highlight for me as well. It was almost like a proud father watching it through the eyes of a child or something like that. So really cool stuff.
Yeah, so just wanted to throw that out there. I look forward to hearing what Carrie has to say on the MSR cast, and it sounds like the Metal Pigeon is going to be getting his flock together and coming to ProgPower next year. We laid down the seed, and he followed the trail, so we're excited to have Sean join us next year. We'll finally get that in-person MSR exchange photo. So excited for that. But next week, something I've had on my radar for a while is an album that, at least according to Encyclopedia Metallum, or the Metal Archives, it came out in September of 1995. There isn't an exact date. It just says September 1995, originally released on the Kick Music label before it was released in Japan on December 15th. But the album is Royal Hunt's Moving Target. I kind of waited a while to talk about this only because we touched on a lot of the tracks from this album when we talked about their live 1996 album, but I feel like enough time has passed. And being that it's the 30-year anniversary of this album, I think it's worth talking about. It was the first album with DC Cooper joining the band, and there is a lot of really good music on this album, so I thought it would be appropriate to talk about that this time of year. It oddly enough didn't actually come out in the U.S. until I think it was 1998 on Magna Carta Records. It actually was released after Paradox.
Wow.
And I remember getting it and being excited to hear another album with DC Cooper on it. And it's a hell of an album. I think it was the second Royal Hunt album I ever owned. And so I have a lot of fond memories of this one. So look forward to talking about it. I remember buying this on cdnow.com.
Wow, good choice. I was not expecting this, but we are long overdue to talk about some Royal Hunt. So I'm glad to do this, and I haven't listened to this album in a while. It's I remember it, but I haven't listened to it in a while. So this will be fun, and then I'm sure we'll cover some non-DC Cooper Royal Hunt albums in the months and years to follow. So great choice. I know we've gone a bit long today. Thanks to everyone who joined us in Atlanta. Thanks to everyone who's listening to this episode. And thanks to everyone going forward. We've got a lot of good stuff planned. So appreciate you, appreciate everyone listening, and we look forward to coming back next week with some Royal Hunt. Have a good week, my friend. I will talk to you soon, and good luck with the move.
We will be live not live, but we'll be here next week, and I'll be in my new studio. Very excited. Take care, buddy.